introduction. It was very well written indeed.
He's the man.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you. So, Rotarian Madhu sir, he's been following up with me, and every time I answer the phone, or I don't, the lack of it, I tell him, can I just call you back in an hour? Because I'm in a sound-sensitive environment, so apologies for that. If I had you waiting for a couple of minutes. A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. I generally love to say lovely dressed ladies, but here I see only 4, nevertheless wonderfully dressed, 5, including me 6, half a dozen. So very good evening to you and the gentlemen. So the very reason I take up this journey once in a while to step out of my studio and come and address people is, I was just talking in Fort a couple of weeks ago, and at the cost of repeating myself, in a studio it's a very small room, like Parveen Sikandar ma'am was just there yesterday, we saw. It's just a mic and me and a lot of imaginary audiences. So about 1 lakh of them, 2 lakh, 3 lakh. I don't tell the guests how many, lest they get very intimidated with that. So when I come to a place like this, it's so beautiful because I get to see you reacting. I also learn from your experiences, and I'm sure a lot of you have so many wonderful life experience, and all of you are an expert in your own field of study or wherever you worked in. So I've been here just about 8 years in radio maybe, and I'm here to share my experiences. So Madhu sir had written in the mail, the topic was questions that you would want to ask in RJ but you never could. I think the very concept of radio has evolved so much that the radio probably that you grew up with and the radio that I grew up with is entirely different. You would agree with me?
Yes.
So to all of you, I think radio was such a star, and I've heard them say on how that was the only mode of communication, and those RJs back then, and how they were not looked as RJs, they were looked as personalities. But then when phase 1 of radio happened, which I think in 2003 or 4, maybe 1 or 2 years front or back, it was only Suryan FM and Radio Mirchi which were there. So I grew up listening to that. In 2006, the second slew of the radio stations happened in Chennai. So this was another 10 stations, and mind you, they were all expensive buys. So about a couple of crores for each license. The licensing itself was very deep. This I'm saying because I'm sure everybody here will be able to appreciate the kind of dynamics that go into making a radio station. And what happened is, again, setting up a radio station with a kind of cost come up to another couple of crores, and all of them are big players. So when 10 players came in, the market became saturated. Now we are again talking about phase 3 of radio, which will bring many more FM stations in Trichy, Madurai, entire tier 2 and tier 3 cities perhaps. That's yet to happen. So what happened when this radio boom came up? There was a lot of freedom, there was a lot of expression, and we didn't know what to do with it. So here was a generation of people who were vocal about everything, from a movie to what I could say to what I should not say on air, and it became a whole new world. Inspiringly enough, what happened in the second phase of radio was when Radio 1 launched and Radio City launched, I was placed in ICICI Lombard. I was in an insurance company post my MBA. I was there for precisely a month, and I couldn't last the corporate rigor. I hated my job. I hated my job so much that I used to go to the bathroom and cry every day. That was the place where nobody would disturb me. And I was like, I was such a misfit in that place that a team leader, I was heading a team, and that guy used to come say, Madam, recharge panna paisa, and I used to give him 500 rupees. I don't know why I did that. So sympathy all gone wrong, everything. I was just a misfit there. So 1 month down the line, on Hindu, I saw this advertisement saying RJ auditions. I was like, okay, I hate my job, I should do something about it. Go, run. So I went into this audition, and again at the cost of repeating myself, I would have said this 100 times. So I really went to the audition hall and I told him I don't know how to talk. And they all laughed on the other side because this crew was from Mumbai, they've set up stations in Mumbai. So they come to Chennai, out of some 2,000, 3,000 people they've interviewed. Here's a girl who comes up and says, I don't know how to talk. So they said, what do you know to do? I said, I can sing. He said, okay, sing. I sang. Interestingly, he is now a movie director. That guy just walked out of the room and he said, you're the morning voice of Chennai. I don't still know what made him say that. What made him say that? I have no idea. I have not known him, nothing. So he came and said, you're the morning voice of Chennai. I looked at him quizzically. I said, are you offering me a part-time job? I already have a good job. Now I was getting smart, so I was negotiating. So out of 2,000 people, they came down to about 40 people, and they said, now we're going to train you 40 guys. So what I did, I lied at work. I said, I'm sick, I'm this and that. I go for a training. I had to wear a a dupatta to cover my head because my office and the training place were very close by. That's the first and last time I ever did so much of lying. So when I went for the audition, I realized how crazy it was because we were all trained by Niladri Bose, Doyle of radio. He's got this booming voice. Many of you might have heard him. So what happened? He took us through intense training. It will be like from 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening. Come back with homework. The next day 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening. And I was like, I thought radio was easy. So from 40 of us, Radio City had to choose 5 of us. I was interestingly one of them. So it helped that I've never heard radio before. It helped I never listened to Suchi or anybody. So I had nobody to look up to, no benchmarks, nothing. I was just fresh. So they liked it. I was the only one who wasn't sounding like Suchi at that point. That's what they said. So it got me my job, but it didn't give me pay. It didn't pay me half as much as I was drawing in a corporate back then. So I hesitated. My dad spent a lot of money for the MBA, and I go to him and I said, I want to take peanuts for a salary. He said, why did you make me spend so much money? You could have just decided, done your Wiscom. Why did you break your heads over case studies and do this? I said, see, I want to do this. I really wish to do this. So he said, go ahead. Another 5 years, you might not have any growth in this career. So do you want to become programming director? I said, no, I'll always be an RJ. He said, ridiculous girl. You don't want to grow. You don't want to do anything else. I said, I'll talk and I'll sing. He looked at my mom looked at my dad. You know how it would be. So they said, okay, this is a young girl's dream. I said, okay, as of now, I think you should just go and do what your heart desires. Very tall thing for a dad to say, but he did. So I did negotiate a little. I did not make the same money that I would have made in a corporate career. Even today people do think it's very fancy being an RJ. It doesn't pay all that well. Not always, not to everybody. So I decided that I'm going to still do it, and I took up the job. So this was 3 years of a roller coaster career in Radio City, and then I moved to Radio 1. So, and where I host the morning breakfast show. So any of you are curious how I sound tomorrow morning, 94.3 you could listen to me between 7 and 12. So now to the topic of the most asked questions. They ask me, does radio exist? Do people listen to radio? So I would like to, in fact, take you all through a story. A couple of you could have heard it, just to tell you the power of the story. But you'll do me a favor. You'll close your eyes. Will you do that? For a couple of minutes. We'll just go through a story. You could relax. No mobile phones. You just close your eyes. So there was once this king who lived in a beautiful village, and he was bored. He had all the riches of the world. He loved his subjects loved him, but he was bored. He didn't know what to do. He tried a lot of concoctions. He tried all the medicines in the world, and there was a physician who told him, I could give you a cure. So the king said, for once, if you don't give me a cure, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to slit your throat. So the court physician said, yes, I can really give you the solution to your problem. So the king said, what would it be? Now the court physician thinks of a plan, comes back to the king, gives him an oil, which is all fancy, bottled up, and he says, apply this on your bald head. But when you do that, do not think of blue mangoes. So the king said, you stupid fellow. Does anybody think of blue mangoes? Mangoes are yellow, they're red, they're golden. Ha, I can smell them already. Who would think of blue mangoes? Give me the potion. He walks away. The court physician goes away smiling. So the king on day 1 opens the bottle and he applies the potion on his head. La 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 la, he sings. And he says, okay, I shouldn't think of blue mangoes. And there it appeared in front of his eyes from the tree in his own courtyard. And he looked at bright blue mangoes. He was surprised. He said, oh my God, how did I do this? Close the bottle. I'll again try tomorrow. So the next day, he tried the same thing. He tried to apply the oil, and all that he could think of was blue mangoes. And then again and again and again. Every day he tried to apply the oil. All that he could see and smell and feel were blue mangoes. Now you could open your eyes. How many of you saw blue mangoes? That's it. All of us see blue mangoes, whether you like to accept it or not. They're all just different shades and colors, but they're all blue. So how did this come? Have you ever before seen a blue mango? Do you think you ever will see a blue mango? That's the power of our mind. So finally, to wrap up the story, the king said, you physician, you fellow, you actually won. You made me see and believe a thing that doesn't exist. court physician said, I wish you had understood. So, you know, the story does go on that the court physician was later lauded and given a pearl garland or whatever, but it goes to believe that sometimes what we think we shouldn't be thinking, we end up thinking about it all the while. That's one point that I wanted to prove. Another point is, radio is the theatre of mind. You see things, you believe things that we don't actually see. So when people ask me, sir, if radio does create an impact, I think it does. In many ways, I meet this random woman who comes up and says, thank you so much. And I say, why? She says, from last week my son started wearing his helmet. I said, why? She said, because on air every day you say wear your helmet, it could save you today. Now it's a very small thing, you could or could not use it in your life, but these small messages, when somebody is talking to you over your car radio or through your headphone, you feel they're talking to you and it creates an impact. So I think that is the power of radio. A couple of other questions that people ask me, how are you so spontaneous? My son loves talking, do you think he can become an RJ? So I tell them, if you have a great voice, yes, it's good to be. For an RJ, it's great to have a good voice. But if you have a good voice, you can't be an RJ. Point one. Point two, oh, I love talking, can I be an RJ? I'm afraid not. Because for an RJ, you have to learn to handle a clock. Like, you know, she was seeing me yesterday at work. It's about managing songs, it's about managing content, it's about what I have to say, what I shouldn't say, play my ads all within an hour. And trust me, it's a crazy job. So that 5 hours, if I want to talk for a minute, I'll have to keep working on how do I say a story concisely. How do I say a story within 30 seconds? I think the same limitation that a blogger goes through, a person who's writing a column, you know, they have to be concerned about the words, the number of words, it's important. To a reader, the number of words will never matter, but to a writer, it matters. So how a television personality, that a couple of seconds on camera does matter. Same way, for us, every second matters. So I don't repeat my language, I don't use fillers like, that's why, I don't say that. This is all to just save my airtime, because every second on air costs my company money. So how did I learn this? Were you born like this, Sulabha? No, I wasn't. I think I just trained. And it's somewhere there in my genes, so I guess it helped. I've never done debates all my life. I've never done extempore speeches all my life. All that I did was sing, which was rehearsed and planned. So how did I do this talking so effortlessly? I think it's because I believe in what I say. So it doesn't require preparation. It doesn't require any kind of effort, because I believe in everything I say. I don't talk about stuff I don't know. So I think that particularly helps. And a couple of other questions that I get asked is, how do you ask people questions? It's a technique I picked up. I don't have a handwritten note on what should I ask A.R. Rahman. In fact, he was the first person that I was a little anxious on how should I begin my conversation. Over 10 years, he's the only person. Because I knew I'd get tongue-tied when I see him. I have tremendous respect for that gentleman. So I knew I would get tongue-tied. And I was just wondering how I'll begin the conversation. And trust me, after that, I haven't written anything down. There is no question to go by. That happens when I'm not listening to you. I'm always intent about the question that I'm going to ask you next. You know, so I don't do that. I just allow the people to talk, and whatever they have to say, my questions come from there. These are a couple of questions that I do get asked. And about the job, yes, technical expertise is something that is part of the game. So whether it is on social media, whether it is about handling a console, but these are all things which are very preliminary that everybody learns. You know, I'm sure all of you end up using a lot of technology yourself, with or without knowing it. So do I. That's about it. That's about my job. I would welcome any questions if you would have any. Yes, there are a couple of things that I picked up, you know, during my job, which is landed 5 minutes in advance, which is a problem. Many places, many places. So I'm one of those who report early to every place. I have developed a problem with that, and I'm concise beyond words. It's an automatic mindset. So there are a couple of auto mindsets that you get to do when you're on radio. I'm concise. You ask me to speak for an hour, I'm lost. Ask me to speak for a couple of minutes, you got me.
The personalities, do you select them, or does your
It is a combination. It is a combination, and the personalities, I mean, it's not like a particular method of arriving at them. In fact, I do read a lot of papers, so I understand what people are reading about, what papers are writing about, so we take inspirations. And I understand it's vice versa. Many journalists follow my page. just to see whom I'm covering. Because it's almost like a journalist job, you know. You're hunting for people, and especially the segment that I'm doing, which is Smart Talk, on which Parveen Imam was interviewed yesterday. We take a conscious effort in talking to people who are very hard to find. You don't find them in meetings like this often, you know, and they're not there in my network. So I had this conversation with this gentleman who is from Roypeta, who feeds about 7,000 parrots every day. Now, on another day, I mean, these are things that come to my mind. On E Road, there's a guy who actually spends half his savings every day to feed people who come to the nearby hospital. How many of us know him? So my job is also to find these people. It's very hard sometimes, but yes.
Like you said about blue mangoes, did you ever think about speaking here?
Speaking here? No.
Did you give it a thought? What are you going to speak?
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't. It evolves. I like the feel of it. You know, there are times that I challenge myself. Okay, so me and Nia Nana Gopi, we've done a show together. So we have this contest earlier, 3 years, 4 years back. So we used to say, okay, now what topic are we going to talk? Can we switch on the mic? And we're still thinking, and he's also very good at it. So we keep thinking, and without telling the audience that we're still thinking, we have to come up with a topic. The one who comes up with it, the other one will follow suit, because it's a mutual effort and we cannot give it up on it. So we do that all the time. What am I going to say? My God, that's it. So then the mind goes on auto mode.
So your interviews are not...
What's that?
Isn't the radio jockey's job more interesting and more exciting than a video?
I don't know if I can answer that because I have not been a video jockey for a long time. There are a lot of advantages. I can come like one cherry bomb in the morning and I can still carry it on. Nobody cares.
It looks like as if it is more exciting than the video.
There is an advantage. Let me tell you, in television, these people are treated like stars. They just come in front of the camera and they do this and they leave.
Self-conscious.
On radio, no, it's just their job to be on camera and say the right things. On radio, I'm doing the editing, I'm doing the producing, I'm doing the sweeping, I'm doing the mopping, I'm doing everything. In television,